Hello and welcome to Black Love and Cinema with Manny and Jess, where we break down love and relationships through the lens of your favorite movies. Today we are continuing our countdown to Christmas with movie number 10.
Yeah, 10.
And today we're presenting a movie that you may not think is a Christmas movie, but we're going to claim it because there's Christmas trees all up and through it. And this movie is my beloved romantic comedy, The Baggage Claim, starring Paula Patton and a lot of other people, including our favorite mother, Jennifer Lewis.
Yes.
But we're going to do this a little differently. So today, my husband's going to be interviewing me, and he's going to let you know what that interview was all about.
Today we're going to be doing an interview about baggage claim. We're going to introduce Jessica, who is an accomplished author, and she created a book called Own Your Singleness. So for those of you that are looking for this book, you can find it on Amazon. You can add it to your cart, and you can give it a good read. How about you tell us about what your book is about?
I knew he was going to say that. So I published Own Your Singleness in 2020, and this book was basically about helping women thrive in their singleness so that they would feel equipped and empowered for a future marriage. So the full title is Own Your Singleness, How to Live Well and Thrive While You're Single so you can love and thrive in your future marriage. And the whole premise of it is that there are 6 typologies that I created that were based on different attachment styles, but it also goes with anecdotal and quantitative evidence that showed that basically the dating patterns of women and the lives of single women of stable single women, if you will, reflect their attachment styles and the way that they approach living their lives. So essentially, single women who live their lives and focus on thriving in their personal development, spiritual development, all different aspects of their life, tend to do better as single people, tend to be more fulfilled, but then they also are more likely to find a partner, and not just any partner, but end up with a partner where they can enjoy a mutually stable, satisfying, and sustainable relationship. There are different types of women who are single, though, and that is primarily connected to various attachment styles, which we won't dive into in this episode, but there are 6 of them. So we have the preoccupied single lady, the promiscuous single lady, the pissed single lady, the permanent single lady, the passive single lady, and the focus of this episode, the proactive single lady. So I'm not going to get into all those today because that's not the point. And really, our character in this movie, Montana, she really demonstrates one of those primary typologies, which will be the focus of this interview.
All right, so you kind of already established that you have these typologies. In baggage claim, Montana Moore, played by Paula Patton, is in the typology of what you said was the proactive typology. So go ahead and kind of give us a little bit more detail on what this proactive typology is for the single ladies out there.
So a proactive single lady is somebody who's actively seeking a partner. And when I say actively, not only is she going out there in the community, on dating apps, whatever medium she can find, but she's also responsive to men approaching her. So this person is the kind of person that you may find hanging out in a cafe, reading a book, but they're all dolled up. This might be the person you see who goes to a bar or a club and they are approachable. Their demeanor is approachable. This is the person who may be on the dating apps and they're investing their own money into seeking a partner. So their whole philosophy, if you will, their ethos is if you want love, you need to go find it. And so they're not going to sit around waiting for things to happen. If they have interest in somebody, they're going to communicate that interest. If someone expresses interest in them, they're going to respond accordingly. They're going to say yes to a date, even if it's a coffee date, even if it's a date at the Cheesecake Factory. They're going to say yes to it because they're trying to find their partner. So what makes Montana this is basically the storyline. Her sister is about to get married. This is her younger sister, probably about by several years, maybe even about 10 years.
Yeah.
So her younger sister who's in college is about to get married. Montana has never even been engaged. She's freaking out. Her mama has been married 5 times. And so she's panicking and she's like, I cannot show up to my sister's wedding without not just a partner, but like not engaged.
Basically a fiance.
Yeah, she wants to show up with a fiance. And this is happening in 30 days.
So
the engagement party, actually.
Yes. And so she went from this whole 90-day fiance situation to a 30-day situation where she was trying to do this. And what it ends up happening is she goes on this whirlwind journey trying to figure out who she should be with by going through her Rolodex of exes.
Yes.
So in the proactive perspective of a single lady, when does being proactive cross into the line of desperation? What's the difference between confident action and a fear-driven urgency? So kind of give us an idea of what that is.
So some evidence of proactive, confident dating might include creating or participating in opportunities to meet quality people. And you're intentional about your social engagement. So every place you go, every app you use is based on what you are looking for. So there are apps that you can use that people are pretty casual and they're just trying to hook up. Well, if you have a desire to be married, you're going to go to a different app where those people tend to have a long-term partnership, marriage focus. It could be the difference between going to a club and kicking it with people every night, never knowing where it's going to go, versus going to a conference or participating in such a setting where people likely share your values. And so that is creating opportunities to meet people that you would vibe with. It also means doing two sides of the same coin, which would be expressing genuine interest, like low key, in a man that you actually are interested in. But on the flip side, being approachable and being receptive to people, talking to you, asking you out on a date. And it also means basically being open and receptive to different types of men and not being hung up on your list, which is a lot of times superficial and doesn't actually help you get what you want. So the other thing, as far as desperation goes and fear-driven urgency, that right there looks like you operating based on some imaginary timeline. Montana feels pressured by her little sister getting married, and there's an engagement party in 30 days. She doesn't want to show up single to that, not only because she's getting married, but because her mom keeps putting this undue pressure on her. Like, why aren't you married yet? You're getting old. It's almost shameful that your little sister's getting married before you. But then also she mentions in the movie, her friends are having babies, everybody's carrying on with their life, and she just feels like she should have been somewhere by now. So basically, Montana is shooting all over herself. And everything that she does is reflecting that. But then we'll get into this more. The other thing she does is she goes back to, like you said, the Rolodex of exes, which may not necessarily be a problem, but as you watch this goofy movie, you can see where all the problems lie.
Right.
And it kind of gives the impression that she's not open to new possibilities, but not because she's not open necessarily. It's because they're the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
It's familiar, so she thinks it's easier. And then the other thing is, given the reason that they broke up or the kind of relationship they had when they were together, it was evident that Montana didn't belong with none of those people. And so she's in that sense, she's settling for the kind of relationship and the partner that she don't even want. But just to meet some deadline, those are some indications of desperation that you should be mindful of.
Okay. So we kind of talked about that deadline and being proactivity while you are still dating. Do you think that her proactivity was from a genuine place, or was it external pressures such as family expectations, age anxiety, her biological clock narrative? How does that pressure show up for for the women out there trying to date with intention?
I got married when I was 39 3/4. And so
There was a shot clock.
yes,
Okay.
yes, it really did feel like there was a shot clock, but nobody said anything to me about how old I should be to be married. But then I had cousins, external pressure, who got married at this point 20 years ago.
Okay.
So, I had both of them, I think, got married when they were 19 or 20 years old. And that whole time, up until the time we got married, I was wondering why I wasn't married.
So you were in that zone.
Yeah. And so it really felt like, it didn't feel like pressure to me then because I was kicking it. I didn't want to be married. That didn't even occur to me. But I think probably when I turned 25, my late 20s,
Okay.
my mindset kind of changed. And that's also when I got back involved with the church,
Gotcha.
who also promotes marriage. They almost make it seem like everybody is going to or should be married, which is false. So I had the church going against me, if you want to call it that. I had my age working against me.
Right.
I had the fact that my cousins had been married for over a decade at that point. And then even some of the men in our family that like just showed up married, like, who married you? And they showed up married, and it was just a lot. And so it was even like the social media, so it wasn't like so much comparison of other couples. That really didn't get to me, but it was the idea that it was more like women who I followed for other things like business or writing books and things like that. And I've seen their journey of being a single woman who's just doing her thing. And then all of a sudden she showed up, oh my God, my fiance. And I'm like, damn, why these heavens, everybody getting married but me?
Did you feel like they were elevating?
Yes, I
Okay.
felt like they was leveling up. And I hated it because I couldn't make sense of it. And it was like we talked about in the other Christmas movie that escapes me right now. I was saying like the idea was I'm doing all the right things.
Okay.
So why is it not happening for me? So it was all kinds of external pressure, but I think the biggest pressure came from inside. Like my mindset was, I'm doing these things. Why am I not able to manifest this blessing? Not manifest in the spooky way, but like, why isn't this happening for me? And then the age thing, I'm like, I'm getting too old for this. I'm not trying to be in the streets. And it felt ridiculous after a while. And then I'm listening to all this content podcast, and there talking about if you a certain age, and let's be honest, they coming from Black women more than anything. If you a Black woman, a certain age, a certain size, and all these things, and you got a kid or whatever else, all of which are matched,
Right.
then it's like your chances of getting married are basically none. And basically the narrative was you have hit the wall, nobody wants you, and you need to just accept that. And it felt true. And so I felt like these are pressures, depending on the person and their context, these pressures hit you from all sides. And it's weird because you don't even think, I didn't even think that it mattered that much to me until I realized how much it did. And the pain was so poignant. I would literally be in like the fetal position, literally like crying and praying and not like, how is this happening? Because I don't know what else to do. Because I was Montana, I was proactive, making moves, and nothing's happening. So it was very frustrating. If you're trying to date with intention, then you need to be mindful of the pressures you're facing and ask yourself, like, am I moving based on the pressure, or am I moving because I genuinely feel ready to be in a healthy, stable, sustainable, satisfying relationship? And if you can't really answer that question without focusing on the fear, then you probably need to focus more on owning your singleness, so you're not basically ending up in a situation where you're with somebody you shouldn't be with in the first place, and then end up wasting however much time you spend with them.
Montana literally goes through her exes one by one, trying to find the one. In your work with single women, when, if ever, is it a good time to revisit past relationships? And how do you know if you're going backwards or if there's something genuinely worth exploring?
We talked about that in, what was that movie? Love Brooklyn a little bit.
Oh, yes. Because, yeah, he was kind of...
Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with going back to assess whether an ex would be a good option for you, because you got to think about the situation that led to you become exes. If you had an unhealthy relationship with them before, if they had red flag patterns, if you had red flag patterns up through that relationship, let it go, let it die. There's nothing to go back to. That's like, again, we talked about somewhere else, returning to your vomit.
Yes.
Yes, but if it was a timing issue, if it was a maturity issue, if it was a matter of almost like, I think those are the main things. It probably always comes down to timing and maturity, because timing, I think, is very much correlated to maturity.
Yes.
You could be 20-year-olds and you've been told by your parents and everybody else the world is your oyster, and you may have found somebody that we would all call the one, but you're like, dang, I'm so young. Your parents may be like, you're too young for that. Just explore, live your life. And so you sabotage it or you break up for that reason. But then 10 years later, you run into each other again after you lived a little, and you might be like, hey, let's explore this. But the stipulation is you both need to be available and you both need to be interested. It can't be one person fond of the other. There has to be mutual interest. And you both have to be willing to start from the place you're at now. What was before is significant because you knew each other before, but you can't let how you were when you were 20 or how it was when you dated dictate how you behave now. You grown.
There's a lot of growth between those years.
Yes. And you should learn who they are now as a person. But if you going back to exes because it's the low hanging fruit, because you be like, well, she always won't answer the phone if I call. He always don't, whatever. Now you're just playing with your life. You're just wasting time.
Yeah.
So I just really think you need to evaluate, why did we break up? What was the relationship really like? And not look at it through the lens of, how you say, rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
You need to look at the reality. You'd be like, dang, I remember how I felt every time I talked to him. I felt small. Every time she said something to me, I felt like I wasn't a man. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And be like, dang, we wasn't even cool like that. We weren't even friends.
It's built off of something that was maybe an imagination or
sexual.
Yeah, some kind of attraction there, but not a full holistic relationship.
Yeah, and so you have to consider that. It's so easy to go back to an ex.
Yeah.
But I feel like most people really do that because they desperate.
So it gets you back in that desperation thing. Mm-hmm. So speaking of exes and all the things that add up to what you want to have in a real partner, in this movie, she kind of had the perfect ideal man. Successful, ambitious.
That's the first problem.
Ready to commit on her timeline. And spoiler alert, she ends up with someone completely different than what she was chasing. Talk to us about the danger of checklists and how women can distinguish between having standards versus chasing a fantasy.
If you've seen any videos or just like shorts, reels, TikToks about standards, they are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. These women be out here. What's that video we watched? Lady said she wanted a man with seven figures. Had to have a specific morning routine.
Oh, yeah.
Be built a specific way. She even talked about what kind of
breakfast
he should eat.
Yogurt with some kind of fruit and granola or something.
Yes,
that was hilarious.
It's crazy. And then if you ever seen Kendra G, what does she have? Kendra G singles or whatever. It's like a dating podcast, whatever. Watch any of her guests. They a whole hot mess with their standards. And then you look at them and you be like, you for real? Like, you got to be playing with me. Because the thing is, the standards that people put out there are ridiculous. Yeah. These standards are superficial. They're usually based on appearance, sexuality, and like money.
It's like 6, 7, 8. 6 feet or taller, 7 figures, and 8.
Yes, that's literally what it is. And so they're thinking that if I have this person, that's the ideal person.
Right.
I'm gonna try my best to be kind.
Say what you need to say.
These standards are stupid. First of all, most of the people who are asking for this stuff don't even come close to the standard they're looking for. So if you literally have the ideal person that you describe on your list, chances are he or she is not looking for you unless you align with their list. So if this is a 6'5", 6-figure or more,
Athletic build.
Certain car, certain job, certain whatever, he's probably looking for someone who is also athletically built. He's probably looking for, basically, he ain't even looking.
Right.
These kind of people have options because those people throw themselves at them because they are everybody's standard.
Right.
And so you end up missing out because you're delusional about what you can get. And there's this delusion of options, and you're just like, I'm gonna go for that because I deserve that. And you think that they can help you level up in life. This is dumb.
Okay.
My philosophy is focus on non-negotiables, focus on things that really matter. Because the substantive things that matter, such as your beliefs and values aligning, such as your I have the non-negotiables in my book. But before I get into that, the idea is you need to ask yourself, do I really need these things in a partner, or is this something I want because of how everybody is gonna look at me if I have it? So if I have a baddie, a girl who looks like a baddie from Instagram, how is everybody gonna view me? If that's your motivation, then you already off on the wrong start.
Okay.
If you want somebody because they seem hypersexual and you feel like you can enjoy where are you gonna go besides sex? If you want all these superficial things, then what is it gonna take to maintain it? How is that gonna help you have a stable, satisfying, and sustainable relationship? The fact that you can look for someone that you should look for somebody you're attracted to. If you're not attracted to them, you ain't gonna want to have sex with them, which is gonna be a whole set of issues. If you're not attracted to them, eventually you develop contempt and resentment, which is two of the
Deadly horsemen.
the horsemen.
According to Gottman, and we'll get into that later.
Yes, there's so many factors that go into it. So find somebody you actually like looking at, like to be with, that you enjoy, but they have these ridiculous standards gets on my nerves. So in my book, I talk about non-negotiables. Actually, I go over all this stuff in more detail. But basically, the standards you want to look for are based on internal factors that inform your life in the long run. So the first thing is you want to make sure that you share spiritual values. We identify as Christian, and so our spiritual values align with Christian values. You don't have to be a Christian, but I think it really does help that regardless of what your religion is, or if you consider yourself non-religious but spiritual, it helps if you share values because that religious value, spiritual value informs everything that you do in your life, your morals, your ethics, the way you raise your kids, the way you approach your sex life,
Yes.
the way, all of that. The other thing is your core values and your beliefs must align. Your lives must be parallel. They must parallel. You must be mutually respectful and trustworthy. Your family values should be similar, and you must agree to practice sexual integrity. This book was written to Christian women who wanted marriage, and I expound on each of those in the book. But one thing that stands out specifically is your core values and beliefs must align. So basically, your core values are the fundamental principles, standards, and qualities that are near and dear to us. Our core values are most apparent when we have to make major decisions or deal with challenging situations. Your core values represent who you are, what you stand for, and influence how you live. And although all of your values may not be the same, it is good to share values about things that are most important to you. So when you evaluate the suitability of a partner, consider whether you share the following values, such as personal values, moral values, intrinsic values, sociocultural values, etc. I'm not going to dive into all that because it really is a lot, but the substantive things that make you who you are and what you believe and what you stand for should inform your dating list. And then if you meet someone who's attractive and you want to talk to them, go ahead, shoot your shot. But you should make your whole list based on 666,
678.
678. You're gonna be looking stupid, and it's like almost like it's like low key a humiliation ritual because you out here pursuing people who probably are not interested in you.
Yeah. That's true. So speaking of people that are not interested in you and possibly people that you may overlook that may be interested in you, William Wright is a character that plays basically her neighbor. He's there for her, do a lot of different things. They kind of have this friendship, and we come to find out pretty much they've been friends most of their lives. So in this, the whole time she's out pursuing and overlooking the good one. What do you think makes women chase unavailable men while ignoring the Williams in their lives?
I think it comes down to the fantasy, the idea of the ideal person, the ideal life, and chasing the 678. So you want someone who meets a specific standard, and anything that is not that, even if they're close, you can't see it. because you have a narrow-minded thing. But so I talked about how the book is based on attachment styles, and there's different attachments like anxious, avoidant, secure, etc. And I found in my research that a lot of single people outside of secure attached single people operate in their dating from a place of fear. And so it seems like Montana was confident, and I think she was, but she also was operating from a place of fear. And when you go after something that's out of your standard, it's a protection. It's a protective mechanism. So if you say, well, I want this only, chances are, unless you are very close to that description yourself, they're never going to see you, notice you, approach you, take interest in you, at least not genuinely. So then you could say, I just haven't met him yet. But in reality, you haven't put up real effort because you know that nigga ain't going to approach you. It's not going to happen. That woman is not ever going to approach you. You can DM her until you turn blue. She's going to be looking at you like you're crazy. But it helps you feel safe because you get to tell everybody else that you have a standard. But in reality, you're afraid to put yourself out there to the most plausible option because they could reject you. And it's not because it's so outside of your league. It's just because they're not interested in you as a person. You don't align. So essentially, unavailable people can feel safer to you. And then you don't have to worry about being vulnerable and intimate with them because everything is superficial. If you were to be involved with someone who sort of met at least a few of those criteria, you're going to keep it superficial because you want to make them happy. You want to keep them interested in you. Whereas William, he knew her.
Yeah.
What did it say? They went back to
Like
elementary school.
That was crazy.
He knew everything about the girl.
Right.
He knew all, even her family life. He knew all about that.
Yes.
And that is someone you're vulnerable to. Being vulnerable is scary. It's super duper scary. And so it's like, I can't be with someone who sees my flaws because they won't like me. What is that? Also fear. And so instead, you keep it all superficial and you always got makeup on, you always wearing certain clothes, you always being all docile, sweet, whatever. And you know, that don't well, you ain't like that in a normal situation. But because you want them to approve you and accept you, you putting on fronts to protect yourself. The other thing I think is that a lot of people just like drama. They think remember he said, and he's talking about his parents, they was married for 40 years.
Right.
He said, my dad had the same business for 40 years.
Yeah. And you would come home and she got dinner ready.
Ready for him to eat 40 years.
Yeah.
All the things. And Montana was like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for her.
Right.
I'm like, what? Stability? She said it was boring.
Right.
And people equate, how do you say passion? I don't want to use the word passion because passion is not necessarily bad, but
High adventure, I guess.
Drama.
Yeah.
They equate drama with excitement and love.
The dramatic.
Yes, if so. Yeah, they think that if we're always, like some people have this idea that if we're fighting, then that means there's love and passion there. Some people will say, you know, if you're not fighting, then they're not interested in you. And there might be some situations where that's true.
Right.
But if you're in a situation with somebody and literally from jump, y'all been fighting, no, this is toxic.
Right.
This is not fighting for something. This is fighting because you're toxic. So they like the drama. They always want to be somewhere doing something. All these dudes that Montana was interested in were exciting.
Yes.
We had the musician who had the club life going on, the tour, or everything like that.
Politician.
The politician who was, you know, had senator or Congress ambitions
Yeah.
and doing all this stuff, and, you know, always in the limelight. And then we had the
hotel.
The hotel owner, the whatever he was.
Right.
He's gonna take her out for over a year, just from this country to that country. They really think that's the life. And so if you can't provide that excitement, they think it's boring and they wouldn't want a part of it. The other part of it is proving you're lovable. So this idea that if I can make that woman, that man interested in me, that means I'm lovable. You don't think that when you're out here pursuing these people. You think, no, I'm confident. I'm just gonna go for what I want. But like I said earlier, you could pursue other people to tell the world, well, that, you know, I have a standard and I'm not gonna settle. But in reality, you're just afraid of putting yourself out there to face real rejection. But there's some people who cling to one person, trying everything in your power to make them see you, like you, appreciate you, doing all this extra stuff, putting in all this effort, and they don't care. But you're like, if I keep doing it, if I keep cooking for him, if I keep providing this, that, or the other, if I get super sexual, if I put it on him real good,
then he'll want to stay. He'll want to put a ring on it.
Yeah. And it's like, no, ma'am. He don't want you. He never did. He never will. He might let you do a whole lot of things for him, but he never will choose you. And that doesn't make you any less lovable, but it is making you look desperate because you keep going for somebody that will never, ever choose you. But you have this idea, if I keep doing it and I win, which won't happen, unless it's a shut up ring situation. Ooh, that's a mess. If I win, that means I'm lovable. How about you accept you're already lovable and be loved? And the fact that this fool didn't choose you has nothing to do with your value or your worth as a human being. It just means he don't choose you. And that's his prerogative. That's her prerogative. Keep it moving and go find somebody who sees you, appreciates you, values you because you're you and not because of what you do for them. And then they have this obsession with outcomes. From jump, Montana had one focus. I'm going to get engaged to somebody so that I'm not showing up to my sister's engagement party unmarried or unengaged. That is so petty. That's what I used to do. When I was on the I was on the dating apps, I was doing all the things. Mm-hmm. I knew what I wanted. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna be on this type of app because this app focuses on people who want a long-term relationship and marriage. But every time I had a bad interaction with them, I'll be so frustrated because it's like I'm not doing this in vain. So why am I on this app and it's not happening? And the fact that I wasn't married and the fact that I was doing everything I could possibly conceive of and it didn't result in that made me start feeling some type of way about myself. Now I'm depressed. That's why I'm in the fetal position. Now I'm angry at God. Like, your word says this, that, or the other, the preacher, the prophet, the this and that, whatever. All these people said, if I did these things, if I whatever, then I would get a husband. Like a husband is some type of reward or whatever. But in reality, you just need to go through the process, live life, trust God's timing, his sovereignty, and let it be. But when you're obsessed with outcomes, you can't see clearly. Right. So William, frankly, made too much sense. Yeah. And because she had one-track mind, she couldn't see him no matter what he did. And frankly, let's be honest, just like that movie we did, a few movies, right. Dude put himself in a friend zone. Yes. Like, how you gonna be? The Advent Calendar movie. Yes. Yes. Like, come on. All this time you ain't ever told her how you feel. Right. That's a whole nother issue. But the reality is, if William represents consistent care and attention, if he represents knowing Montana in her vulnerable state as a human and her emotions and all like that, if he represents being present and supportive and reliable, which she obviously thinks is boring, if he represents someone who accepts her, doesn't need her to be performative, and he represents someone who's stable and secure and available for love, she'll know what to do with that. Because it's like, I need excitement in my life. And literally, that's why I said he makes too much sense for her. So he's actually given all the proper green flags of how you would want to have a relationship with someone, but she's ignoring it because she's chasing the excitement of everything. Yeah, and being how he is requires a vulnerability that she's not really willing to show, I guess. So she has to understand her worth without proving it. She has to be present in a relationship for real without performing. Because he's not gonna be trying to have her doing these different roles. Okay. Every man she was with, she was code switching for every dude. Right. Every single one of them. Except for William. And William, she was herself. Completely. Yes. And William saw her without the makeup. Yep. William saw her without the heels. Yep. William saw her in her pajamas. Mm-hmm. Regular pajamas. And she has to be, you're exposed. When you're with somebody who loves you, you are completely exposed. And that's a blessing. Because to have someone really see you and still be like, I love you and I want you, I feel like I'm about to cry. Oh. But it really is wow, this is weird. It's okay. It really is a game changer because it's like everybody else, you always trying to prove something. I just need them to see me. I need them to want me. The person who loves you, they see you. They saw you from jump. Yeah. They saw you from jump. They appreciated you. They liked you just the way you are. And to have someone see you like that can really F you up. Because it's like, essentially the idea is, how can you love me? I'm so unworthy of love. Okay. How can you like me? I know I'm a mess. That's what people say. If you knew everything about me, there's no way you would choose me. But it's like, they don't need to know everything about you. Right. They chose you anyway. And the thing about it is, when somebody really loves you, they can find out the worst about you. God forbid it was like egregious, but even still, they find out the worst about you and they still love you. In fact, they may love you even more. Right. And if you can't handle being vulnerable, then you still need to take some time for yourself and stop looking for a partner. So if you are a person overlooking your William, ask yourself these questions. Okay. Am I chasing someone who is unavailable because it's safer than being chosen by someone who is available? Do I confuse drama and intensity with real chemistry and compatibility? Am I so focused on my fantasy checklist that I can't see the quality of a man who does not fit that checklist? Is there somebody that's already in my life who is actually available, who shows up consistently that I have dismissed as just a friend? Do I believe that I have to earn love, or can I receive it from someone who freely gives it? Am I more attracted to the chase than to actual partnership? You ponder those questions. I encourage you to go journal about it now to figure out where you are. And that will help you decide whether you're overlooking someone, and it also gives you insight into your state of being, your psychology. Because if these questions help you realize you have essentially some attachment issues, some other issues, then you need to take some time on yourself and work on yourself so you can get past that and finally see clearly.
All right. Those are all good questions, and hopefully that will help get people in the right direction when they face their Williams, or if they have a William in their life already.
Or a Wilhelmina.
Or a Wilhelmina.
How old is that name?
I don't know. It's probably ancient.
Like from the 1800s?
Wilhelmina.
Like, that's very old.
Yes, or Wilma.
Yes,
There
Wilma.
we go.
That's still old.
That is old. That's like bedrock.
Yes,
All right, so you wrote this book when you were single, and now you're happily married.
I am.
Looking back, which typology were you? And identify the patterns that actually helped you in owning your dating journey. And or did you have to go through anything that was Montana level as far as the chaos?
Montana level chaos. When I wrote this book, I was primarily proactive.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, I was going for it. Whatever I wanted, I was going to go get it. But that's because I knew I wanted to be married. And I really felt like being passive, sitting around waiting for someone to find me, was, quite frankly, I thought it was ridiculous.
Okay.
And I felt like I was in a place where I had focused on my personal development and spiritual development. I was actively working on those things. I felt like I was in a healthy place, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where I could go look for someone and have enough wisdom and discernment to be able to figure out if they would be a good match.
All right.
So technically, I didn't have any success with that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was doing that when I was in my early 30s. And I already told y'all I didn't get married until 39 3/4.
Okay.
So almost a decade of all my active efforts.
Proactive.
Yeah. And it didn't result in me getting married. I didn't just do dating apps. So first of all, I did do a few, and those are expensive. So I would set a time limit on those. Like, if you really want to be out here on a dating app, set a time limit because it adds up.
Okay.
And if you ain't getting no results, you're gonna be pissed because them bills are high. But other than that, I was not just doing that. I was reading all the books, and I'm talking about from psychologists, from Christian therapists, from every type of nonfiction you could think of, trying to help me grow as a person and figure out how to choose a spouse. I was paying for courses. I did there was a course, I forgot what it was called. I paid for several courses, all kinds of money.
Okay.
I invested in a lot of things. I started being more intentional about my appearance, how I did my hair and makeup and all those things. I started being more intentional about going out. I'm a whole introvert. And I was trying to get out, at least so I could be seen and found somewhere.
Okay.
I was doing all of that. And there was nothing I could do to make that outcome come to pass. And so then I realized, obviously not then, all I did was cry and pray and fast and all the things then, and kept trying. Then I realized it was a matter of God's timing. And while God is working behind the scenes, you just need to live your life, hence own your singleness. And I also found when people were doing that, the chances of them finding somebody greatly increased. But the Montana level chaos,
No.
I didn't get into the chaos, but I think I went to a Montana level in my pursuit.
Okay.
Not really like chasing people per se, but my pursuit,
Yourself out
putting myself out there, doing everything from courses to books to
events
to dating apps to everything.
Okay.
Didn't end up with not one husband in the entire decade.
Well, I'm glad you found your husband.
But it didn't help because I was dating somebody too, so I don't know how that works.
All right.
That was in between breakups.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, you kind of knew what you had, and you kind of also knew what you wanted, and you were just putting yourself out there and being proactive. And you were single, so technically you weren't married, so you were single. You had that ability to do that. So we've kind of talked about William being basically having all these green flags, but we want to go into a little bit more in depth on the red flags. Red flags can be some things that come up that let you know that this person may not be the one, or you may need to look elsewhere. But in that same sense, you may have to decipher whether that's a red flag or a trigger, something that is internal, that is maybe a red flag that's yours, that you need to overlook or you need to work through or heal from in order to be more accepting of what the situation is. So kind of give us some advice from your perspective on singleness about red flags versus triggers.
So the first thing to distinguish between red flags and triggers is red flags deal with objective reality, how this person is, how they treat you, and how they directly, literally impact you, versus a trigger being sort of an internal issue that is brought about by your attachment history and your toxic, traumatic experiences that you've had in various relationship contexts. So a legitimate red flag deals with the person. It's about, as I said, how they are, how they treat people. So it could be everything from their character issues to relationship red flags to behavioral patterns. So let me give you examples of some character issues. They're constantly lying about everything, including small things. That's a red flag. They lack integrity. Basically, what they say they don't mean. They don't prove. They don't do what they say. They're disrespectful, and not just towards you, but to other people. You see a pattern of disrespect. They are controlling and manipulative. They don't have accountability. They use people. And then some relationship red flags. They're never available, or they're not available to you rather. So they're married, they're fresh out of a relationship, they're emotionally unavailable. They give you some evidence that they're not available to you. They might be in proximity, they may use you in certain ways, but in reality, they're not available. If you really want a relationship, they're not available. They're inconsistent. So they show up all of a sudden, they come sort of like love bombing, if you will. Next thing you know, they're gone. So they hot and cold. You don't know where you stand with them. You always question, you starting to feel crazy. And they also make you question your sanity, which is gaslighting. They have values and beliefs that don't align with yours. That doesn't have to be a red flag in the sense like it's bad about them, but it's a red flag because basically your soul is telling you this ain't gonna work. At the end of the day, in the long term, we ain't gonna be a good match for each other.
Right.
They disrespect your boundaries, your physical boundaries, your emotional boundaries, your sexual boundaries. They don't respect them, and they make you feel bad about yourself, directly or indirectly. There's always something that they say or do to make you feel less than or unworthy or unlovable. Then they may have behavior patterns. They may be struggling with substance use disorders or alcohol use disorders, etc. They might be a whole thug out here, like really committing crimes.
Okay.
And then your triggers deal with you. This is all based on your fears and your history. Again, I mentioned traumatic history, but I also mentioned toxicity, but I'm referring specifically to toxic stress. So it could be attachment based, like when he doesn't text back immediately, you panic about him abandoning you, but then he texts you back in a few hours. And so it messes you up. He's like, oh my God, why is he not texting me? Doesn't mean he doesn't like me. And or you might be on TikTok like, this is why I'm not talking to him again. Because if you ask me out on a date and I text you and you don't respond within 20 minutes, then it's over. I've seen these dumb TikToks. And I'm like, that's why you're single. But we all know that's based on fear.
Right.
He says he needs alone time, and you interpret it as rejection. But in reality, he's an introvert, so he gets energy being alone. He has to. I'm an introvert.
Yes, you are.
After this podcast, he know that I'm gonna be like, yeah, I need a break. And I'm talking to a lens.
Yes.
And then past relationship triggers. If he do something your ex did, you all in an uproar. So you project the issues that you have with your ex onto them, and you constantly treat them like they're your ex, almost like you trying to get back at your ex through him. Or you always wait for the other shoe to drop. So you hyper vigilant, always looking for signs that they're screwing you over, that they're cheating on you, that they lying to you, that they all these things. And then there's some stuff that's based on fear. So when you're triggered, you might take somebody that's nice. You might be like, oh, he's too nice. And then you assume that him being nice means he's lying to you, he's manipulating you, he's hiding something. But in reality, he's just nice. You think he wants something from you. Or when things are going well, you sabotage it because you can't handle stability. You can't handle a peace, peace and quiet. And so you start bringing mess, starting fights out of nowhere. So you have to ask yourself when it comes to this, is what's happening for real an objective reality, an objective truth, or is it informed by my toxic history, traumatic history? Is this about my past? So if you can't point to specific current behavior, it's probably a trigger. If your friends don't see a problem, I'm talking about friends that have some wisdom, discernment, and common sense, not yes men, then you're probably triggered. And if the same thing doesn't bother you with other people, you're probably triggered. So like if you text your friend and they don't text you back until 2 hours later, and that doesn't make you flip, then why are you gonna do that when somebody you are dating doesn't text you back immediately? Right. You got to evaluate all that.
In the end, if we're dealing or coaching a proactive single lady, or there's someone that is proactive out there that watches this movie, what do you say is the healthiest way to go after what you want?
Try to reframe what success means to you while you're dating. Like Montana's way was success meant getting engaged in 30 days. And failure for her meant being single, not engaged. So the healthy way to approach or reframe your idea of what success is to say that success could mean becoming more whole, healed, and healthy, holistically whole. It means being more discerning about partners, being able to distinguish between red flags and triggers. It means not settling. And I ain't talking about that stupid, I'm not settling for standards mess. I'm talking about your non-negotiables. It means stewarding your season well. You're owning your singleness. You live in your life and you're embracing opportunities regardless of what's happening. Okay. So there's some questions you can ask yourself is, am I becoming the woman I want to be? Am I making choices that I'm proud of? Am I growing in my faith, in my character, in my wisdom? Would I want my daughter to date the way that I'm dating? Am I trusting God with the outcomes while being faithful in my actions? Montana measured success entirely by getting a ring. she would have been successful with any of those terrible men just to avoid being single. That is not success. That is settling. So while you're out there, trust God's timing. I told y'all, I never even thought about it. I spent almost 10 years. Yes, I was dating, but we broke up multiple times because of the faith thing. But in between those times, which kind of contradicts what I was trying to do. If you're trying to get married, why you keep going back to your girlfriend? I know. Let's just say, for the general timeline, I spent 10 years doing everything I could, and it didn't result in the outcome.
Right.
And then when I stopped trying, and this is not a formula, I will never tell you there's a formula, but it just happened this way. When I stopped trying and I literally focused on living my own life, and I actually even resolved that I probably wasn't going to be single, or that I probably wouldn't marry, and I was going to be single for the rest of my life, I accepted that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to adapt my mind, my body, my everything so I can be single, live my life. And I was going to own my singleness and stand on that. Then he showed up. I had nothing to do with it. And our story is fascinating. It blows my mind to this day how it all unfolded. But I didn't have a hand in it. I had been done with the dating apps. I had been done with all the things.
Yeah.
I was doing proactive things still, but I wasn't like out here next level Montana in it.
Right.
Montana in it. So you gotta focus on the things you can't control. You can't control the outcomes of anything, including dating. So what you can control is your healing and growth. You can control the choices you make. You can control the boundaries that you establish and keep. You can control how you show up in dating. You can control whether you are approachable to different people. You can control whether you settle or hold your standards. You can control your attitude and your perspective. You can control the opportunities more or less of how you meet people. But you cannot control when you will meet the right person. You cannot control whether a specific person will approach you or choose you. You cannot control other people's readiness to be in a relationship, even if they meet all the criteria that makes sense. You cannot control the reality of demographics, your age, your appearance. You can't control whether somebody's attracted to you. You can't manipulate them to be attracted to you. You cannot control God's timeline for your life. And from where I'm sitting, whether you believe in God or not, you can't control that. So you just do your part, do whatever you can, trust the process, and operate accordingly. Instead of trying to make things happen, just live your life, own your singleness.
And with that, we have one bonus question. So some people say having a timeline creates urgency and intention in dating. Others say it creates desperation and bad decisions. Where do you land on this? Should single women set dating deadlines, or does that just add unnecessary pressure to an already complicated process? So I want to know, 30 days, 30 years, never. Do you set a timeline or not?
No.
Okay.
The timeline is arbitrary. So to be fair, I said something about turning 40.
Yes.
And I said I didn't want to be single. I wanted to be engaged by the time I turned 40.
Right.
That was an arbitrary deadline set by what I felt turning 40 meant.
Correct.
So it's like, how am I not in this space by now? I should have been here by now. So that's what that was based on.
Okay.
But in reality, the timelines don't make sense.
Right.
Based on what? So it's like, it literally doesn't make sense. And then God forbid, you don't even be doing nothing. You literally never go nowhere. You are not approachable. You don't take care of yourself. You out here looking crazy, but then you gonna set a deadline? Hell, practically speaking, nobody would approach you because you don't come off as approachable.
Okay.
So I think that I would say if you dare set a deadline, then take proactive measures to achieve the deadline, but not from a place of fear. It's just proactive in a practical sense. So it's like, if I really want to get married by a certain time, or I want to forget marriage, if I want to meet somebody by a certain time and be in a relationship that could lead to marriage, then I need to do these things, go to these places, invest in this stuff or whatever, with the understanding that you can't control the outcome. But you can't sit here setting arbitrary deadlines and then be passive, wait for Prince Charming to come, and then wonder why you still single and be upset about it. So, I mean, I wanted to be married by the time I was 40, but I didn't. If I wasn't married by the time I was 40, particularly if I was single, I wouldn't. I already said I was going to accept that I wasn't going to be married.
Right.
So I was adapting to a new possibility. But the only reason I mentioned that with you is because I was letting you know this is how I've been seeing my life.
Right.
And I just basically, that was really a conversation about where are we going.
Right.
So it wasn't like we needed to be married by the time I was 40. It was just me saying this is where my mind has been. And so that timeline came up for me to basically let you know where my head was at. And it would give you an opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm not feeling marriage. I already went through that. I ain't trying to do it again. But if I was single, that conversation wouldn't have been had. It would have just been me like, well, I'm 40 now, and here I am. Yeah, so
okay.
You can't. If you don't have a timeline, you got to take action.
Okay. So overall, basically, if you have a timeline, if you don't have a timeline, you still have to own your singleness.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to, because literally research based, when you live well and thrive as a single person, you are more likely to find a compatible partner with whom you can enjoy a stable, satisfying, and sustainable relationship. What Montana calls boring in the movie, that's what you'd be able to find. And those people enjoy a long lasting, thriving marriage because they're essentially whole, healthy individuals actively working on self improvement, and that continues in their marriage relationship. So, yeah, own your singleness. You may not want to be single, but as long as you are single, own it. Live your life.
Thank you. And again,
Thank you.
that book by Jessica Durrett, but you'll see it be by Jessica Hutton
Because I was single.
because she was single, is Own Your Singleness. All right. Thanks for coming. And thanks for doing the podcast. This is Black Love and Cinema. Stay black.
Boy, I'm thinking you said that.
You can cut all that out.
No, I believe it.